In this video, we will add more detail to the wall section through the heavy timber structure. So I'm in the section, and now I'm going to go to the wall section that I created. And here's where we'll begin adding some detail components and notations and things like that. All right, so I have this relationship here with the roof where we have a plywood substrate, and it's sitting on tapered wood framing, which is also sitting on this exposed deck material, exposed from the underside. So I will add a few elements to this. One of them is going to be a roofing membrane. Another is to kind of close off this area of the roof, to add a fascia and a gutter and some flashing. Okay, and working with some of the line weights, I'm going to go to manage up here on the ribbon and scroll down to structural framing. You might need to expand the structure here. There's the framing, and I'm going to change this to 2. And let's see how that looks. Okay, so now these line weights are a little lighter. I'm going to add an extra rectangle to represent one more piece of this decking. So let's go to the annotate, ribbon, detail line. I'll change it to the one I created called thin medium, and I'll create a rectangle here. And then I'll click on it and I will move it over so it's consistent with the other joints. I think it was 1/4 inch. Okay. I'll also add a 2x member that will kind of end off all those tapered pieces. So if I go, I'm still in the annotate tab. If I go to component and I look for a 2x4 nominal cut lumber section, and I'll need to rotate it. Let's see here, click on it, use the rotate tool, turn it 90 degrees, and then move it from the lower left corner so it's sitting on top of that decking. Okay. Next, we can begin working on the flashing and fascia that will be part of this condition right here. Okay, under the annotate tab, I will go to a detail line. No, actually, I'm change that. Annotate, let's do it as a region so we can get some wood texture. Build region and look for the one called wood 2. We've used that previously. Let's see here. I'm going to click on this edge of the plywood. Oops. Always do this. I want to start with a rectangle, just makes it easier, faster. And I'm going to come down here 5.5 inches. I want it to be 3/4 of an inch wide and 5.5. There we go. Hit the check mark, and I need to make an adjustment, edit the boundary. It looks like I was using invisible lines for these edges. So I'm going to try to choose them all in one selection set and place them on the thin medium line type and hit the check mark. Okay. So that will cover up all these joints here. And now what we'll do is we'll add a piece of flashing that goes, it will go under the membrane and then we'll drop down over the fascia. So you can get a sense of what it is we're drawing here. This is a similar detail. We have a sloped roof, a low slope roof here. This right here is what's described as a sheet metal edge flashing. So it goes underneath. This says here modified bitumen membrane. This is just one type of low slope roofing materials that will sit on top of this this flashing, the flashing will turn and it will basically help to direct water into a gutter that's attached to the fascia. Okay, I'm ready to start drawing here. Let's see how the thin medium line looks. That's probably fine. I'm going to, it's going to be a little tough to get this completely in alignment. 4.5 inches should be good. I'm going to click on that short line that I just made and I'm going to offset it 1/4 inch. So click, click, and then I can delete the 2 extra ones that I just made. And we'll let this run. Again, we're trying to get it at a slight angle, but we just basically need for it to overhang by 1/4 inch there. And then we're going to do another line in the end, bring it down maybe 2.5 inches or 2.25, and then turn it like so. Now, just remembered, I want to get that gutter up and under here. Now, remember that detail that I showed you was mirrored. So our gutter is going to be on the left side instead of the right side. I probably should have placed that first because I needed for it to tuck under here. But I need to bring it in and place it and check some of the offsets for it. So I'm going to go to Insert. And I'm going to load family. We'll get to this glulam business shortly, but for now, I'm going to type in gutter. And I'm going to use this gutter rectangular profile. Now, for our previous wall sections, at least for one of them, we drew our own gutter type. But for this one, we'll use one of these standard components. I'm going to go to annotate component, and it's going to put a pretty big one here. Now, the size of the gutter really depends on the quantity of water that you need to collect. And there's a whole process for kind of calculating what those need to be. For this structure, we're going to use this smallest one. Okay, so I'm going to place it temporarily here, and then I'm going to mirror it. Get rid of the first one and move it. It has a kind of an offset dimension. Okay, and if you place it, 1/2 inch or so above the bottom of this fascia board, it's okay. I can see that my lines of my flashing, there's one of them. I'm going to click on it and bring it to the front. And the same thing with the other one. Now it's sitting right on top of the gutter, and that doesn't allow me any space to use my leaders to point to stuff. So I'm going to hold down Control to pick both of them, and I'm going to move it over another 2.5 inches. So now we have that flashing dropping the water into the gutter. And the next thing that I can add now is a line that represents the membrane. So I'm going to go back to my detail line, keep it at thin medium. I will draw a line along the top of this plywood, and I'm going to offset that. Let's see what 1/4 inch looks like. I may need to do a little bit more. Let's see. Click on it, offset. Erase the 2. Let's see, is it right on top? Yeah, it's right on top. So I'll do another offset. And then delete the first one that I made. Maybe a little bit far away, but it does give us an opportunity to kind of point to things. Notice how the membrane is on top of the flashing. Again, you're trying to keep the drainage, the water draining off of the roof. Okay, let's go ahead and bring in that glulam. So if you go to Insert, Load Autodesk Family, and here I'm going to type in glulam. Let's see here. Maybe it didn't. Let's try again. You might need to kind of clear all the selections in here. Let's try it again. Glulam. Need to figure out how to get the graphic like I had previously. Okay, if you go to find any and you go to detail items, it's how you type it in. You have to put a hyphen in between the two. Have to do that. And this says here, glue laminated beams section. I'm going to load that. And it's going to load a bunch of them. So if we go to annotate components, you should see in here, there's a bunch of glue lams already loaded. So, I'll just place one right there just so you can sort of see. Now remember that the glue lams are kind of made up of smaller pieces of wood members that are glued together, right? Now, let's try to find one that's sort of similar to the size we have here. This is an 8 by 24 nominally. When I measure this, it's 111.5 by 7.5. So let's go back to annotate component. Under my glue lams, I'm going to click on this one that's 6 3/4 by 24 inches. I'm going to edit the type. I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to make my duplicate 7.5 by 111.5. Get rid of the 2 here and say okay. And I'm going to change these dimensions 5 and 7.5 inches. And apply and okay. And I'll place that right on top of there. Get rid of this one. Okay, now I have one more of these, and I think it's the same size. I wanted to keep them consistent components, not that they're carrying the same amount of weight. Right. All right, I'm going to create another filler piece. Now, this one may be better to, you have this railing sitting here. Oops, I'm making lines all over the place. It may be better to have a full piece here because you need to attach the railing, and it might be a better detail to not have it so close to a joint like this. So I'm gonna go to annotate and create a region here. Let's see what options I have. Solid black. And start with a rectangle and trace over that one and hit the check mark. No, I don't want a solid black. I want solid white. Okay, better yet, it would be nice to do some wood pattern in there, but let's see here. So that's now that type. I'm going to edit the boundary and I'm going to beef up these to be my thin medium line type. Okay, so again, to have that joint might make it a little bit more difficult. So this might be a special piece here that, covers the whole glue lam below. All right, one last thing before we begin to make some annotations. You often will see when you have some kind of foundation system that we're not cutting through these. This pier is kind of off in the distance, but we want to have some sense of where it goes below ground. So you'll often see in details like this that the part that's below ground is dashed. So the way to do this is to first change your visual style to wireframe. Right now we see everything. Then you're going to create some visibility by going to view, show hidden lines. All right. So when the first thing to pick is if you'll see the note down here, select element to show hidden lines through. I want to see it through the topography. So I'm going to try to pick that topography, and then it's going to say, select the element you want to see beyond, basically. All right, you won't see anything's changed, but if we then go back to hidden line, you'll notice that there's now a dashed line appearing here. So I can decipher how far below grade that pier goes. Okay, so now we are ready to begin adding content for the annotations.